Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Okay guys, I'm back. It is Thursday, June 11th, and it is 10:08 p.m. I'm a bit discombobulated because this is the third time I've started this video, and I've been having trouble with the audio, so I would have gotten through it all and then realized that it didn't record. For some reason, the setting on my audio, it's locked, the setting's locked, but it keeps changing. So anyway, I have it fixed now. I'm quite certain of it. So let's move ahead with the news. All right, and I do have some people to thank here. The following donated via coffee: Anita, Anon, Airbrush Shack Nancy. Now that is an intriguing one. I wonder why she calls herself Airbrush Shack Nancy. Maybe she has an airbrush shack. I don't know. But Nancy, if you're listening, let us know. We're curious. Well, I am, at least. And Space Chick 7, I love that name, recognize that name. And thank you so much, guys. Donations certainly have been down because there are so many people out of work, and I completely get that. So I do appreciate it very, very much. All right, well, let's get into the news now that we've got the problem solved, and you should be able to hear it because, you know, it kind of sucks just watching someone, you know, not being able to see what they say, hear what they say. Okay. Let's start with this. All right, see the tubes? All fake. Now, this is in regards to that 75-year-old gentleman whom Trump referred to as, I think, an agitator or something like that. He is indeed an agent provocateur, and, you know, the press had a field day with that, with our president, but he was correct, as he seems to be most of the time. So anyway, you can see the tubes coming from under the mask. So yeah, and the blood is actually coming from in front of his ear because look, if it was, oops, I'm sorry. I don't know why it does that. Because think about this logically. If it was coming from within the ear, you wouldn't have a drip right here because gravity would pull it down, not up and over. So there is a tube there that's supplying the blood, and his head is not even touching there. His head does not look damaged in any way, but the news is trying to tell us now that he's brain damaged. Well, he may have been brain damaged before, because he certainly didn't have any brain damage from that at all. He is an agent provocateur, that has been proven. And it's quite obvious, but they're still going to run with that narrative because they think we are stupid. We are not. All right, and look at this from Team Trump. You can see all that tubing along his back and the trigger he pulls on his chest. And indeed you can. Look at this. You can see the tubing going underneath his shirt and here. And then he's squeezing something which is making the blood pump. And yeah, if it was coming from inside his ear, blood does not flow up and over. Sorry, but it doesn't. And then down here, blood coming from in front of ear, tube running from under mask, and his head is not even touching the pavement. So yeah, they're trying to sell us a false narrative, as they seem to do quite frequently. You know, I wasn't aware of all this fakery in the news until Q. I really wasn't. Now, I was, you know, a lot of news would come on and I'd say, I don't believe that. There's something fishy with that. But I didn't know how pervasive it was. Well, I do now. And, you know, once you become aware of it, it's kind of hard to be fooled. And I'm sure you're realizing that too, because you can probably pick something out and go, I don't. Yeah. So let's go back now and let's get away from that. And this. Okay. All right. Now this is the next thing. And this is where I kept discovering a problem. So this better play. And it says police no longer responding to active shooting crimes. Well, I'm going to make this bigger for you tiny phone people. I'm always thinking of you tiny phone people. Not making fun of you.
The survey is falling, they're shooting the game mayor versus game mayor. They're shooting across at each other. Let them do it. Call it. Let it be. Middle.
You got what you wanted. No cops.
Yeah. Did you hear that? There's a shooting, and the police officers said, well, let him do it. And then the other guy says, let it be. Go ahead. What do they say? Let's listen to it again, okay? Just one more time. This is what you're going to get. If you are in one of these zones and you try to call the police where these police have just up and abandoned, this is what you'll get. This is what you'll get.
The survey is falling, they're shooting the game mayor versus game mayor. They're shooting across at each other. Let them do it.
Let him do it.
Let it be.
Let it be. Ditto.
You got what you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that what, that's what the liberals want. It's what the liberals want. Two people shooting across at each other. And they say, well, you know, let it be. Ditto. Yeah. This isn't going to end well. It isn't going to end well. And I really can't see this going on too much further before Trump puts his foot down, because he's not a wuss. I don't know. I was going to use another word that starts with P, and it isn't pansy. Yeah, maybe that's not appropriate. So, but he's not. Trump's all man. He really is. He's a man's man. All right. No soy for him. That's a guy that likes his meat, not soy burgers. Okay, now let's go on now. Let's look at this. And why shouldn't we? Senate Judiciary gives Graham sweeping subpoena powers in review of Russia probe. This is good news. The Senate Judiciary Committee voted 12-10 along party lines Thursday to allow its chair, Senator Lindsey Graham, to subpoena former Obama administration officials as part of the GOP-led probe into the origins of the 2016 Russia investigation. Why it matters. Graham now has sweeping authorities to subpoena documents and more than 50 individuals related to the Russia investigation, including former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. The Senate Homeland Security Committee, which is also investigating the FBI's probe into the Trump campaign and transition officials, approved similar subpoena powers for its chair, Senator Ron Johnson, last week. Judiciary Committee Democrats argued that Thursday's broad authorization removed the minority party's ability to approve individual subpoenas, calling it unprecedented and accusing Republicans of a fishing expedition to help Trump ahead of the election. Democrats also argued the probe is unnecessary because Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz investigated the origins of the Russia investigation in 2019. Democratic attempts to amend the resolution to subpoena Rudy Giuliani, Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, and other Trump associates were all rejected on party lines. Republican members, including Graham, are especially focused on errors that Horowitz uncovered in the FBI's applications for wiretaps of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, demanding they be investigated further. I assure you, we're not going to be deterred, Graham said at Thursday's hearing. If we have to do it by ourselves, we will do it by ourselves. I want to know why all these counterintelligence investigations were opened to begin with. The big picture, Johnson and Graham have said they plan to issue reports before November's election. The Justice Department is also conducting a sweeping criminal investigation led by, I thought that was something else. Have said they also plan to issue reports before November's election. The Justice Department is also conducting a sweeping criminal investigation led by veteran prosecutor John Durham, which Attorney General Bill Barr has signaled could result in indictments filed before the election. Johnson is also heading a probe into Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden and his work for Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's good news. Very, very good news. All right, and there's more to come. The news, it just keeps coming. Okay, this by Leanna Simmons. This is a planned stage performance. Do you really think a globalist-run city like Seattle would let these basement-dwelling virgins that they created take over a city they own? They are trying to make them appear powerful and in turn make the president look weak. So obvious. Well, I would concur. It is very obvious what is being done. And this is Catherine, voter ID. Here's my idea for the lunatics in it's a 6-block radius, not an 8. Here's my idea for the lunatics in a 6-block radius in Seattle. Cut off electricity, cut off water, no food trucks allowed in, no electric, no water, no food, no life. These so-called officials have no baseballs? No, balls. They have no balls. Step up and shut them down. Well, I agree with that. It's very easy to solve that. It is very, very easy. That's right. Shut off electricity. Cut off the water. Yeah. No food trucks allowed in. How long will they last? What are they going to do? Start eating each other? They might. Who knows? Don't give them any suggestions. All right, and this is Pink About It. Antifa is checking IDs before allowing people into the Seattle autonomous zone. Weird. I thought government IDs and border enforcement were racist. It's like they're a parody of themselves. Yes, indeed. Yeah, they're all against borders, right? But then they build a border around this. And they're all against IDs and government IDs. And yeah, but you got to show an ID before you can enter. Yeah, something wrong with that, isn't there? A little bit hypocritical. Okay. These don't strike me as the brightest bulbs on the marquee. You know, if you get my drift here, they probably don't even realize that they're being hypocritical because we're not dealing with high, intellect here. We're really not. They are people that are easily manipulated by the puppet masters like Soros, and I guess will do anything for money. So, all right. Let's move on to the next thing, and it's this. So let's get this straight. Gates Foundation and Rockefeller Fund involved with negotiating bill for contact tracing 6 months before pandemic. Now, shouldn't surprise us because we know now that this was all. I mean, I'm not saying there's not a virus. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's not at all what they told us it was. So let's take a look at this. And please, how do you explain this? Somebody? Anybody? Exclusive. Bill Gates negotiated a $100 billion contract tracing deal with Democrat congressman, sponsor of Bill 6 months before coronavirus pandemic. Odd. They must be psychic. The investigative duo, in their first interview since that bombshell congressional testimony, revealed to Payne that representatives from the Gates Foundation met with U.S. Congressman Bobby L. Rush at a sit-down in Rwanda, East Africa, in mid-August 2019 to hash out who would score the windfall from a government contact tracing program. And just last month, 9 months after the meeting with the Gates Foundation in Rwanda, Rush, a Democrat from Illinois, introduced the $100 billion H.R. 6666, the COVID-19 Testing, Reaching, and Contacting Everyone Trace Act. Now, this concerns me because this was, contracted from, he was contracted with from the government. The government was the one that gave this, what do you call that? Contract to Bill Gates. Like, I don't understand that because, Was Trump involved? Where did this money come from? Where? Saying it's the government is not good enough for me, because there's two governments right now. There's the legitimate government and the shadow government. Which government did this come from? I want to know. I bet you want to know too. And Payne has since learned Congressman Rush traveled to Rwanda with his spouse from August 12th to the 19th, 2019, to take part in talks and a week-long event underwritten by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. But how can you negotiate the byproducts of monitoring a pandemic 6 to 7 months before the outbreak of the virus even happens? Maybe because it was planned. It was planned. Unbelievable. And yet, there we have it. There we have it. All right. Well, now let's just move down here to see if there's anything else here. It says, just so we are clear, deals for contract tracing 6 months before pandemic, and December tweet before pandemic talking about your excitement for vaccines in 2020. Oh, let's look at this. Bill Gates. What's next for our foundation? I'm particularly excited about what the next year could mean for one of the best buys in global health, vaccines. Now, this was December 19th of 2019. Well, and then somebody beneath that says depopulation. Well, we know when Bill Gates talks vaccines, it's all about depopulation, because do you really think he cares? Really? You think he's trying to save lives? He's not. He's not trying to save anybody's life. He's all for depopulation and reducing the world population. And he wants to be involved in that. Deeply, deeply involved. And he is. Well, let's just move down here to see if we've missed anything. Says, follow the money. Join the dots of influence and money. Here's Bill Gates. Imperial College London created the computer models, which predicted and miscalculated the spread, impact, and death rate of this pandemic. Oh, look at that. He gave over $280 million to them, and over $4.3 billion he gave to the World Health Organization, and over $3 billion to Global Health Partnership, with the goal of increasing immunizations in poor countries. Wonder why he wants to do that. And over $870 million to Johns Hopkins University, provides data, statistics, maps, and COVID resources. He gave over $18 million to the NIH, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. And who is the director of that? Why, Anthony Fauci. Who else? And let's see. Microsoft gave to Gavi, and this is for the ID 2020 digital identification technology, which may be used alongside the vaccinations. Well, and let's look at this. He gave over $155 million to the CDC. CDC, U.S. National Public Health Institute, advises U.S. government on health and vaccines. And $53 million to BBC Media Action, supports media and communications efforts that strengthen governance, advises on health issues. Oh, and let's not forget this, $40 million to Professor Chris Whitty, England's chief medical officer, and over $243 million to University of Oxford for vaccine research and development. So who did he, well, he gave $4.3 billion to the World Health Organization. So that is the top. Then the next one would be Gavi, Global Health Partnership, with the goal of increasing immunizations in poor countries. Well, there you go. He's all about reducing the population. You know, this is the thing. Okay, think about this. Why is it that the men who are advocating for the reduction in world population don't volunteer to be the first? I don't understand that. They're advocating it for everyone else. Well, I say, after you. After you. right? He'd be leading by example. Well, that's what I say. Anyway, don't tell me that I've got to die because there's too much people on the earth if you're not willing to die. And he's not. You can rest assured of that. He thinks he's above, he's elite. So he's going to be the one that governs those that are left, or helps govern those that are left after the population is decreased, which they have been planning for a very, very long time. Imagine just sitting around with all your money thinking, gee, how can I reduce the population? Where can I invest this money that I have to reduce global population? That's what he's doing. I don't know. Does he think he's going to live forever? Sooner or later, he's going to have to face, the judge. What's he going to say then? God doesn't take too kindly to people killing off his people. I'm just saying. So, I read a brief headline saying that this corona could have been around since August 2019. Kind of makes sense now. November 2019 through January 2020, I had the symptoms of this virus. Though I was going to need hospitalizing, just couldn't breathe. The doctors were clueless. I've heard this time and time and time again of people that had this or seemed to have all the symptoms of this earlier, much earlier than they said it was released. And I do believe it was around earlier. So let's go on now, because there's more. There's always more. And let's come down here. Now, let's look at this. Rioters in Philly deface a statue of Matthias Baldwin, an early abolitionist who fought against slavery 30 years before it ended. That's what I say. These people are not the brightest people. They're really not. Why didn't they seek to understand what these statues stood for before defacing them? No, they're not going to do that. Unbelievable ignorance. And I mean ignorance as in willful ignorance, not, ignorance as in lack of understanding. Okay, and I love this. Now, I love me some Trump, because I'm telling you, this man stands for what is right. Trump administration will not even consider renaming military bases. Trump administration will not even consider renaming military bases. Those that deny their history are doomed to repeat it. It's true. And, what I think would be really funny if Trump decided Fort Bragg is one that they want renamed. I think he should rename it Fort Trump. Could you imagine the liberals? Oh my gosh. Oh, that would be so funny. I would love that. Don't you think that would be hysterical? I mean, no, I don't think Fort Bragg should be renamed. And can you imagine all the administrative work in trying to rename a base? Like, everything would have to be changed. Everything. But I do think it would be hysterical if he said, yes, I think Fort Bragg should be called Fort Trump. I'm just saying. I don't know. My mind. That's where my mind goes. That's my sense of humor. All right. Well, let's look at the next thing. And it's this. Now, everyone needs to be aware of this. Now, I'm quite certain that none of you have donated. I hope not, because it's not going to help Black lives, which one would assume if they donate to Black Lives Matter. I would assume that it's going to help impoverished Blacks, or going to help for education for Blacks, or going, more low-cost housing, or programs to lift people out of, poverty, get more Black business owners, although we have the most Black business owners that there has ever been under Trump, which is amazing and should continue. But no, when you click to donate to Black Lives Matter, it takes you to Act Blue. If donated money goes unclaimed, Act Blue disperses the money however they want. These are their top expenditures so far in 2020. Oh, well, look at this. It goes to Democrats. Oh, I see. When you donate to Black Lives Matter, it goes to Democrats, the most racist people on earth, who want to keep blacks down. Yeah, Bernie, they spent, what is this, 186 million? Biden, 119 million. Elizabeth Warren, 93 million. Pete for America, oh, that must have been Buttigieg, 78 million. Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, 55 million. Amy for America, 43 million. Friends of Andrew Yang, 31 million. Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee, 31 million. Democrat National Committee, 29 million. Amy McGrath for Senate, 29 million. That's where your money's going, people. Yeah, it helps the, poor, impoverished blacks or, or whatever. Yeah, goes to educate them or goes to whatever, whatever would help them. That's what I would assume. If I donated, I would think, oh, this is going to help. Maybe, to scholarships or to, black schools or predominantly black schools. That's what I would think. But no, it goes to the Democrats. Oh, who could have seen that coming? Yeah, just about everyone. Yep. All right. There you go. Just in case any of you are shocked, don't be. Okay, and let's look at this now. Okay. More on LB Notable. Read the theory that Antifa was plotting to impersonate and frame National Guardsmen. And we've heard this. I talked about it in the last video I did. It says Antifa plotted to dress as National Guard and start looting. Esper countered by de-arming the National Guard, having them wear patrol caps instead of helmets. Thank you, Anon, for sharing your analysis on this. Very plausible theory and right in line with We Have It All and POTUS playing D5 chess. Also an example to trust the plan. Many thought Esper was not working in line with POTUS wishes, plus optics for some. However, POTUS needs to TTP. I don't know. I don't know what that stands for. Did the anarchists have many uniforms? Was it known prior? The counter AG Barr multi-agency FBI CT task force. Okay, I don't know about all this. All I know is that from what I've heard, that Esper, was it Esper? Somebody told Antifa or the National Guard to wear the caps and be unarmed because there were plans to have people dressed as the National Guard shoot people and blame it on the National Guard. But of course, when they showed up with no caps and no weapons, like with the soft caps and no weapons, the people that were dressed as National Guard that were not National Guard would stand out. Now that's brilliant. It's brilliant to me. So that is what people are saying. I think that it's plausible. It makes sense because it didn't make any sense to me to send them out with soft caps and no weapons. Now it does, because they were planning to send in agent provocateurs dressed as National Guardsmen and shoot people. So that's why they didn't have weapons, because they couldn't be. How can you blame somebody for shooting someone if they don't have a gun? Kind of hard. So I happen to think that that's probably what happened, because it's the only thing that makes sense. So let's go back. And Charlie Kirk, apparently you need a photo ID to enter Seattle's autonomous zone. So the left is okay with IDs to riot in the streets, but not to vote? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yep. He always calls it right, Charlie Kirk. All right, now I don't know what this is, but let's take a look at it. I must have pulled it for a reason. Chicago mayor considers, oh yes. Chicago mayor considers property tax hikes as residents fear exodus from city. Laying off city employees could be on the table too. Now, of course, this is, Lori Lightfoot, the woman that looks exactly like a troll doll. She does. You put her and a troll doll side by side, indistinguishable. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said she couldn't keep raising property taxes off the table as the city faces a budget shortfall and Chicago businesses struggle to recover from both looting and the CV shutdown. Now, you know what I say? Well, tough noogies, because she is the author of her own problems here. So, you know what they're going to do? They're going to start asking for federal money. I can't take it off the table, but it is truly the last thing I want to do, Lightfoot said at a press conference this week. Sure, she's going to raise the taxes and people are going to leave. Because why should they have to pay for her ineptitude? I wouldn't. And if I was a business, I would hightail it out of there. I really would. So laying off city employees could be on the table too, as the city faces an estimated budget shortfall of $700 million. Every city in the country is dealing with a loss of revenue. No, I don't think so. I think it's just the Democrat ones. That's what I think. Chicago Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, Samir Mayakar, told Fox Business, cities, unlike the federal government, we have to balance our books. Mayor Lightfoot has two principles in mind: making sure that the most vulnerable populations of the city aren't impacted. She's focused on making sure we're not driving business out of the city. Oh, what does she think she's doing then? Really? You think businesses are going to stay? I mean, you let the rioters burn and loot them. I wouldn't stay. I think if they do, they're nuts. A pedestrian wearing a protective mask walks past a boarded up Tiffany & Company store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, U.S. on Friday, June 5th, 2020. Photographer Christopher Dilt Bloomberg via Getty Images. Well, but Chicago will likely lose out on hundreds of millions of dollars after CV caused the city to cancel large gatherings, including the Lollapalooza music festival scheduled for later this summer. Oh, they canceled that, scheduled for later this summer. Oh, but it's okay to riot and loot and burn things down. Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Otherwise, you got to stay at home. Unless you're burning and looting and shooting people and throwing bricks. Canceling Lollapalooza alone will result in 300 fewer jobs. Well, then don't cancel it. Don't cancel it. It's for later this summer. I don't know. What is wrong with these Democrat mayors and senators? And I just don't know. Meanwhile, many business owners are picking up the pieces after looters ransacked their stores on the weekend of May 29th. A lot of these communities are becoming deserts, a lot of our Black communities, and if we don't keep our businesses flowing in our own communities, we'll all move out to the suburbs or something like that, restaurant owner Nathaniel Pendleton told the Chicago Sun-Times. We are trying to keep our neighborhoods vitalized, and we want our kids to be able to walk around and say, hey, this is where I grew up, and be proud of that fact. Yeah, well, she allowed this. She did. She allowed it. Says a person cleans up items outside a Jewel grocery store Monday, June 1st in the Bronzeville neighborhood of Chicago after the business was broken into during unrest in reaction to the death of George Floyd. Yeah, it had nothing to do with George Floyd. Pendleton's business, the New Look restaurant, The Next Level, will get help from the Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives for repairs to his restaurant that were not covered by insurance, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. Lightfoot also announced a $10 million commitment from the city to help businesses damaged by the riots last week. Well, they should do that. It's their fault. All right, let's go back, because there's more. All right, now let's look at this. Okay, hang on here. It says, this is what rioters did to the Minneapolis Sheraton they took over after the riots. This was converted to their sanctuary. They raised hundreds of thousands through crowdfunding to support the illegal occupation. And look what they did. Okay, let's, I gotta make this bigger. Tiny phone, people. All right. Look at this. They're animals. And there's needles all over the place. Why do that to a place where you're staying? I guess they had to make it look like their own homes. It's disgusting. Food everywhere, and a bunch of needles over there. And, you know, that's a biohazard because there's needles and there was even cooking stuff there, like, you know, to cook meth. Yeah. So, I can't imagine. I just could never do that to somebody else's property, ever. I really couldn't. I could not. Okay. Well, let's look at this. Let's go back to Troll Lady here. Insurrection, Seattle Mayor and Congresswoman. Okay, maybe this isn't. I'm sorry. This isn't Lori Lightfoot. This is insurrection. Seattle Mayor and Congresswoman taunt President Trump over armed anarchist occupation. Go back to your bunker. Now, this was published today. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin replied to President Trump late Wednesday with a childish taunt after Trump warned her and Governor Jay Inslee he would act if they did not secure the city from anarchists who had taken over several blocks in an armed occupation. Yeah. Make us all safe. Go back to your bunker. That's what she said. Make us all safe. Go back to your bunker. Mm-hmm. Radical Rep Pramila Jayapal also taunted Trump. Don't you have a bunker to be in? Imagine if somebody said that to Obama when he was in office. Just imagine. What would the press have done? We know. Okay, I'm sorry. This is something completely different. And this is, don't you have a bunker to be in? Durkin and Jayapal were replying to Trump's statement earlier Wednesday night. Radical left Governor Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle are being taunted and played at a level that our great country has never seen before. Take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. This is not a game. These ugly anarchists must be stopped immediately. Oh, that's interesting. He put stooped. Usually when Trump makes a mistake like that, there's a reason. These anarchists must be stooped, but he meant stopped. Immediately, move fast. Domestic terrorists have taken over Seattle, run by radical left Democrats. Of course, law and order. And that's what they were replying to. But imagine having such disrespect for a sitting president. Radical left Governor Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle are being taunted and played at okay, we just read that. I'm sorry. I'm like losing it, I guess. Yeah. This week, anarchists established a six-block area they call the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone with armed guards controlling access and shaking down businesses. Governor Inslee claimed ignorance when asked about this earlier Wednesday. Can you imagine? These people. Governor Inslee on so-called autonomous zone on Capitol Hill. That's news to me. Don't you think you should know what's going on? The rest of America knows. Just a little odd. And this is Benny. Armed protesters have taken over 6 blocks in Seattle and are calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Where are the leaders in Seattle? Yeah, that's a good question. Where are they? There are no leaders in Seattle. That's the problem. There are no leaders. Because if there were, they would actually lead. You know, that's why they're called leaders. All right, and let's look at this. Why the heck not? Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, he is a disaster. A disaster. Joe Biden, even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did. What? Apples and oranges here. Apple and oranges. Yeah. One was a criminal. And then the other was Dr. King. Well, let's listen. Let me make this bigger for you tiny phone people. Okay.
But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did. But even Dr. King's assassination
Okay, well, I'm still shaking my head over that. I don't know. I don't think he can open his mouth without putting his foot in it. All right. Well, there's more. Okay. Oh, you'll find this interesting and mildly horrifying. 2 South Carolina National Guardsmen found glass baked into pizza they ordered while on DC deployment. Can you imagine? Oops, hang on here. Sorry. Yeah. Well, let's come down here. And this is from yesterday. Sorry, Sorry, I'm just waiting because my cat was going to jump and I had to hold this so that the microphone didn't. Okay, the soldiers were staying at the Marriott Marquis Hotel during their mission to the nation's capital when they decided to order pizza from a nearby establishment using Uber Eats, according to a Department of Defense report shared with the Post and Courier. When they opened the pizza, they found shards of glass baked into the dough and cheese. They didn't eat the pizza and no one was injured, according to the report. No other guardsmen experienced a similar problem. Shouldn't someone be charged for that? They could have killed somebody, and that's probably what they were intending. The command says that the soldiers are okay and that this was the only incident to their knowledge, said Captain Jessica Donnelly, a spokeswoman for the South Carolina National Guard. She said the soldiers were advised to file a police report about the incident. A spokeswoman for the D.C. Metro Police Department said there was no report on file. Department of Defense personnel have seen an increase in threats, according to the report, but it went on to state that there have been no specific threats made by protesters against soldiers. The soldiers' names were not mentioned in the Department of Defense report or named by the South Carolina National Guard officials. The South Carolina Guard troops returned from their deployment on Tuesday. Governor Henry McMaster sent nearly 500 soldiers to Washington, D.C. last week to support President Donald Trump. Trump said he wanted to dominate the streets in response to protesters. The demonstrations were sparked by the death of George Floyd, a black man from Minneapolis whose death at the hands of police was captured on video. Okay, so we know that. Their presence was criticized, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. Nothing can excuse putting glass in a pizza. Nothing. They were there protecting the president and, protecting the Capitol, doing their jobs. Okay. Now, let's go back. Now that we are on the last item for tonight. So, and it's a juicy one. All right. Nancy Pelosi silent on own father who oversaw dedication of Confederate statue. Well, 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 you don't say. The hypocrisy just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. We better get some hip waders, because we're up to, we're thigh high in the swamp now. Okay. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who on Wednesday demanded the removal of Confederate statues occupying the U.S. Capitol, has remained silent on her father's role in overseeing the dedication of the Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee Monument while serving as Baltimore's mayor in 1948. Pelosi this week formally requested the removal of Confederate statues occupying the U.S. Capitol, dismissing them as monuments to men who advocated cruelty and barbarism to achieve such a plainly racist end. Her demand comes as angry protesters across the nation take matters into their own hands, vandalizing and in some cases beheading statues and monuments memorializing the Civil War era and beyond. As I have said before, the halls of Congress are the very heart of our democracy. The statues in the Capitol should embody our highest ideals as Americans. No, they should actually embody the history of the nation. You think pulling the statue down is going to erase the history? It's not. It's not. Anyway, expressing who we are and who we aspire to be as a nation. Pelosi said in her letter to Committee Chair Roy Blunt and Vice Chair Zoe Lofgren, monuments to men who advocated cruelty and barbarism to achieve such a plainly racist end are a grotesque affront to these ideals, she continued. Their statues pay homage to hate, not heritage. They must be removed. However, her father, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., oversaw the dedication of such a state in Baltimore's Wyman Park, the Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee Monument, as mayor of the city in 1948. At the time, the speaker's father said that people could look to Jackson and Lee's life as inspiration and urged Americans to emulate Jackson's example and stand like a Stonewall against aggression in any form that would seek to destroy the liberty of the world. World Wars I and II found the North and South fighting for a common cause, and the generalship and military science displayed by these two great men in the war between the states lived on and were applied in the military plans for our nation in Europe and the Pacific areas, D'Alessandro said at the dedication ceremony as detailed by the Baltimore Sun. He continued, "Today, with our nation's beset by subversive groups and propaganda which seek to destroy our national unity, we can look for inspiration to the lives of Lee and Jackson to remind us to be resolute and determined in preserving our sacred institutions, remain steadfast in our determination to preserve freedom, not only for ourselves, but for other liberty-loving nations who are striving to preserve their national unity as free nations." Wow, this is the most ironic thing I've seen in a very, very long time. In these days of uncertainty and turmoil, Americans must emulate Jackson's example and stand like a stone wall against aggression in any form that would seek to destroy the liberty of the world, he added. City crews removed the statue in August 2017 under the direction of the city council. Yeah, I don't like seeing statues and historical things removed at all, no matter what they're for, because it's part of the history, and those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. Pelosi's office did not respond to Breitbart News' request for comment on the matter. No, I don't imagine she would. This is the only inquiry. Pelosi is probably too drunk to respond. This is the only inquiry Pelosi refused to answer regarding her family's history. The speaker has also in recent weeks criticized President Trump's response to violent riots. In a June 4th letter to the president, she wrote, "We are concerned about the increased militarization and lack of clarity that may increase chaos. I am writing to request a full list of the agencies involved in clarifications of the roles and responsibilities of the troops and federal law enforcement resources operating in the city. Congress and the American people need to know who is in charge, what is the chain of command, what is the mission, and by what authority is the National Guard from other states operating in the Capitol." Well, Trump has authority over the National Guard and can employ them as he sees fit. However, Pelosi's brother, while serving as Baltimore's mayor in 1960, specifically requested then Governor Spiro Agnew call in the National Guard to quell the unrest during the riots of 1968. As Baltimore Magazine detailed, at 10 p.m., city police admitted their inability to contain the chaos, and Governor Spiro Agnew, at the request of Baltimore Mayor Thomas D'Alessandro III, called in the National Guard, simultaneously issuing an 11 to 6 a.m. curfew for the city. By late evening on Saturday, April 6, 1968, the Baltimore riots were in full swing. When the sun rose the next day, 5,500 National Guardsmen, 400 state troopers, and 1,200 city cops occupied Baltimore. 3 people were dead, 70 injured, more than 100 arrested, and 250 fire alarms had been reported. On the east side, still smoldering buildings lined the streets and sidewalks that were flecked with shards of broken glass. Sparked by the April 4th assassination of civil rights patriarch Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, and fueled by decades of repressed anger and resentment over perceived political, social, and economic injustices, African American communities erupted in violence in Baltimore and many other U.S. cities: New York, Boston, Detroit, Cincinnati, and Tallahassee, with Chicago and Washington, D.C. suffering the most extensive damage. The Speaker's office did not return Breitbart News' request for comment on her brother's use of the National Guard either. Yeah, just another illustration that these people, they only do what is expedient for them. They don't care. And, you know, talk about hypocrisy, really. I mean, when you look up hypocrisy in the dictionary, you will see her picture there. Yes, you will. Along with a bottle of vodka that she's polished off. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that is it for tonight. And I'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Oh, look at this. I had more. Well, you know what? I am going to end for tonight, seeing as I started this video 3 times before I even got it to record in a manner that you would be able to view it. So I will be back tomorrow. I don't know if that's a threat or a promise, but all right. So that is it. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. I will be delighted to see you guys tomorrow. Good night.